Hi, welcome everyone to what is our final webinar as part of our Smarter SMSF Integrations Week, where we're taking a look at a range of the different integrations that we have within our Smarter SMSF software. We've explored in the first part of the week the integrations that we have across all of the SMSF software providers. So we are very much brand agnostic insofar that we have integrations with BGL, Class, and SuperMate when it comes to your SMSF software. And our final session today is really looking at the integrations that we have with the various government agencies. And where we were thinking about, obviously, a name for this, and what did become very apparent, of course, is that this is, in the first instance for us anyway, really embedded in the establishment process. Now, I say in the first instance because in theory, what we're going to be doing over time is obviously expanding this out further to be able to make a number of changes and updates through the various government agencies when it comes to certain SMSF transactions. That is some way down the track, but you can, I guess, hope to see as we go through some of today's session where these opportunities might lie, and in particular as we start to look at workflows as part of this process with you as well. So in terms of what we're going to be covering in today's session, we are going to be spending most of our time looking at the enhancements that we've made around the fund establishment process. Okay, so this takes us from the incorporation approach of establishing our companies within the Smarter SMSF platform, taking us through as a workflow, in essence, to take that data and move it into our new SMSF order form to be able to complete our new fund and have that established. And then the release of our ABN TFN to enable us again to use that data to effectively create or apply for that ABN TFN through the ABR and get your response message confirming whether that ABN has been issued or there is some delay around that. So we will go into each of these parts today to help you understand some of the nuances, obviously, within each and all these forms and the technology that we've put into these to obviously help you throughout that ordering process. So we'll be exploring our company form and some of the smarts that we've put into that. We'll be looking at the workflow that comes off the back of that to then be able to create your new SMSF. And then we will, of course, move into our process for our ABN TFN and the outcomes that come from that particular order approach as well. And really what part of this journey is to show you how we are building out what we're calling our DocFlows process. And this process, whilst we're focusing only today on fund establishment, is really going to open up a range of opportunities on our Smarter SMSF platform around the generation of documents. The fact that you will be able to use data from form to form to form, strategy documents that we might have set up for you, processes that you might have done yourself, being able to task those within different users, and we'll touch on a little bit about that as part of the subscription benefits where we have our primary and secondary users. And then we'll finish off with a bit of a roadmap to help kind of bring all that back together for you. But for those of you that might not know a lot about the Smarter SMSF business, we are a SMSF specialist provider. In that respect, we provide documents in this space, legal, pension, compliance documents, and we are also an accredited educator in this space, doing a lot of CPD-based activities and, of course, technical support. We have around 1,300 users across our platform that tap into both documents and also our CPD training solutions. We are a Melbourne-based business, but we support clients all around the country, and we are B2B. So we deal with accountants and advisors and other professionals working within this space. We very rarely see trustees on our platform for various obvious reasons, and we are there to support you in your practice where you can leverage our specialization in this space to be able to apply to your clients. most importantly. Now, it is really important to note, so we're not a legal firm as such. We are a document provider, of which we have our document platform, but an important distinction here is that we do have business owners and some of the partners that we work with who are solicitors, practicing solicitors today, and therefore we rely upon them and their expertise in certain circumstances where that legal oversight then needs to occur. Now, one of the other things that's worth noting is that we own all of the document IP and the platform. This is really important. It was one of the decisions that I made when Ian Glenister, who's the co-founder of the Smarter SMSF business, the first lawyer in Australia to become an SMSF specialist, when he retired, rather than using his documentation, his legal documents, his deed, which many of you utilize maybe or know of, in essence, we wanted to ensure we had all that in-house. We own from end to end, from platform to document. So there's no third-party risks to you. We know in the industry, there have been times where relationships would fracture, and therefore parties have gone their own way. And as a result of that, platforms need to look for new providers. And therefore, the only person that loses out of that entire scenario is you, which means because you're doing a whole heap of work around the estate planning or whatever it is, and if the terms and conditions of those deeds are changing with different views, then you need to go back through and reinvent that process potentially from scratch again. So I wanted to remove that process, and therefore we made that decision to ensure that we had all the document IP along with the IP of the platform owned by the Smarter SMSF business. Now, we have about 80 documents available on the platform, all in the SMSF space. So we go deeper than many of our competitors in this space. We might not have the breadth of documents because we don't deal with non-SMSF products. We know what we're good at and we stick to that. And as I said before, all of those documents are either created internally by us or supported by the legal support that we have around those. So a good example of that is we're making some changes to the deed at the moment for 1 July around some recent case law decisions. So I've been involved in that process. We get a couple of our clients to give us some feedback on those changes. But in essence, Chris Hill through Hill Legal will settle on that deed change. And therefore, if there's any questions that are needed, then naturally we have Chris there to be able to support us in that process. And again, any documents that you have and CPD that you want to utilize is available on a pay-as-you-go basis, but we do encourage you to leverage the benefits of subscription as the many hundreds of clients actually do. So we're going to touch on our platform and go into this shortly, but I just did want to highlight a few key things about the platform, because these are kind of the common questions that we get about what we do and how we do it, things like security, all those bits and pieces. So we are a specialist business, as I said, in the SMSF space, but we have a strong focus on automation. How can we take what we know in our business and apply that to a scenario that can then become replicable for you? Pension documents, trust deed upgrades, investment strategies, what happens when a member dies? These are things that can actually take potentially long periods of time that you might not, in some instances, do very often. So therefore, being able to create these templates that help you navigate through these processes is all about saving you time and ultimately money. And then again, if we have specific issues, we can tap into the legal expertise that we have through Hill Legal to deal with these issues like rectifications and those sorts of things. Now, from a platform point of view, all of our data and the platform is hosted via Amazon Web Services. Data is stored in Sydney. We have SSL certificates right across the site for payment. So payment is secure, and we do accept Visa, MasterCard, and American Express. And when you're doing orders, naturally, you'll see shortly, you need to incorporate the payment into it on a pay-as-you-go basis. But for members, where there are company orders and those sorts of things, you can actually have the credit card saved so that it is applied and you don't need to include that every time. For example, when you do have a payment that needs to be made in certain circumstances. Within our forms, there are a range of tooltips to help you understand the questions that may be pertinent to the completion of that particular order. And once that order is completed, you will then receive an email of that order. And it may be multiple emails that talk through the fact that we've received the order, the details of the order, and then finally the completed order itself. And you will see shortly around this ABN TFN, we have, once a new fund has been created, just that reminder about the ABN TFN, a link to the user guide. So if you've got any questions about it as well. And in addition to the email about the completed order, again, you will see in the completed orders page shortly, and this is where we're going to spend a bit of time today, there is a range of actions that can be taken. And from those actions, it might be the fact that we're sending that data into our SMSF software, or sending our documents into the SMSF software, or starting a new action that is such as applying for the ABN or TFN. And within there, you have the ability to do things like resetting orders. Now, that's not relevant for things like company and corporations for obvious reasons. But if you have a different team member doing certain tasks, you could be potentially saving those orders. But there are circumstances where we recognize where there might be a name that's incorrect, an address that's incorrect. So there is a reset functionality that our members, for example, would be able to utilize and then simply update that. And all of the guides and help that we have around setting up integrations, accessing sample documents, how you go through the ordering process and so forth is all covered within our knowledge base that we'll touch on in just a few moments. And everything that we do gets fairly heavily tested and assessed as an API partner with our SMSF software providers. So we go through security assessments every year with Class, BGL, and SuperMate because of the ongoing requirements around the digital service provider framework that the ATO have. Okay, so the fact that we have to go through that level of detail and have penetration testing and a whole range of things is crucial, and is why many people obviously put a lot of trust in us in terms of not only our specialization, but the tech stack that we have available to use as well. So let's now move on to what the key part of today is. And this is around what we're calling DocFlows. And we're going to spend some time here today, in essence, going through this sequence. And you may have seen me touch on this in recent times. And if you've attended any of our webinars this week as part of the integrations week, you will have seen me show this slide in one form or another. Now, what we are going to go through today is, in essence, the 3 steps to establishing our self-managed fund. One is where we would have a corporate trustee. We're going to look at that company incorporation. Importantly, we have the action that can come off that, and that is we can send that data into CAS 360 to actually set up the company should you have that software available. But what we then do is we have the data from that company order form then actually flow down and into the new self-managed super fund order form. Allows us to then complete that form. And then again, once that form has been completed, we can take that next action, which would be, I want to now set this fund up inside our self-managed super fund software. And again, you have that ability to send the data into your SMSF software and get it set up within Simple Fund 360, within Class, and within the brand within Class, and then within SuperMate. We do have the ability to send the docs into Simple Fund at this stage. We have API access that will enable us to get that process done and send the docs into both Class and SuperMate as well. And then the final piece is this new part of the integration process where we can send the data from our new fund to be able to look at doing a range of other tasks. And at the moment, that core one is getting the ABN TFN done. Now, I should say, the fact that we know that many of our members have different processes around when that ABN TFN is done. So whether you want to go ahead and kind of do that instantaneously, you can do that. Whether you go and have all the clients come out, sign, execute all the different documentation, and you might do this 2 weeks later, it doesn't matter. The reality is you can go into the completed order and start the process with the data that you have to undertake that ABN TFN. And you'll see today there's a huge time saving in this because of things like the associated contacts, all that information you're not having to re-key into this process. And the final step here is well, once we actually get the message from the registrar in respect to the ABN being issued, then what we have also done as an action off the back of that is allowing you to post that ABN back into your SMSF software as well. Now, as you can see, and this is where this evolution of DocFlows is really going to come from, each task here allows us to think about what we could do next. And for us, this is where this evolution of DocFlows is going to take us, because we are then going to be looking at bank accounts. We can then potentially look at generating other documents like investment strategies, more specific binding death benefit nominations, if that was the case. Really, the world is our oyster in some respects in what we want to add to and apply here. And in many respects, we will get to a point where you can choose your own adventure as well. So you'll be able to establish a workflow that you have as an internal process in respect to the documents that you want. Okay, so why are we going down this approach? And I know Jo from my office, she's probably online here today, and her and myself go through and do a lot of the template development and getting it linked into the SMSF software. And we spent a lot of time going through and looking at the combined form process around this new fund and company. Okay, so there are some positives to doing that. Okay, so it's a single form. It reduces time through the duplication process. So you not have to rekey fund names, trustees, and that sort of stuff. But what it does create is a whole range of negatives to that process, because we would have to go back. There's significant build time on us, which puts time lags on that sort of access to you. There are a large number of combinations that then potentially come out the back of that. And then when we have more templates, then you end up with a much slower document generation process, which got us thinking about, well, is there a smarter way? i.e., have a look at the t-shirt. And you can see here what this allows us to do is through our own API that we have on the Smarter SMSF platform, it allows us to move to market much faster in respect to these. We have more flexibility in the document combination. So we could have a company, and that company obviously relates to the self-managed super fund, but we could then have a change of trustee and have that change of trustee linked to a deed upgrade. There could be a change of trustee, a company that links to a change of trustee that links to a deed upgrade. And it's the flow of that data, because now we're not just merging 2 forms, we're actually merging 3 forms, 4 forms, 5 forms to that process. Okay, and then, as I said before, with our ABN registration process, well, it might be in the future, once the business registry services and the API kind of opens up, that we'll be able to report these things over and make the updates that we want to, not only into our SMSF software, but into the ATO, into ASIC, and so forth as well. So from a positive point of view, you can see here there's a range of additional things. So the ability for us to create a whole range of strategy combinations for you, or document flow combinations, or potentially you want to preset those yourself. And then finally, there's a tasking process. So you may then have different people involved in the steps, which enable us to potentially set out those different steps and allow you to send that information between different parties. So yes, it's not a single form, but as long as we make sure that you're not re-keying anything that you shouldn't be, then we see this as a huge advantage over that combined forms process. Okay, so just a little bit of insight as to why we're doing what we're doing. So today, as we're about to jump in and have a look, this is the technology functionality that's actually happening in the background in respect to a range of these things. So today in our companies, we're going to have a look at the name validation. So the fact that you'll be able to check it with ASIC even before you start. So you're not ending up with situations where they're getting rejected because of the fact that that name already exists and you didn't check that process. We'll obviously get the submission to ASIC. You'll get your issuing of the certificate with the ACN that allows you to get that company registered. You have the ability to post to CAS, and then we've got a tasking process that allows you to move that data on into your new SMSF form where it would be relevant with a corporate trustee. Again, we complete our new SMSF form. Once completed, we have this posting of the data to set that up inside of your SMSF software, and subject to the endpoints that exist for those. They may and may not do fund name, address, establishment date, deed providers and date, trustee member details, and that sort of thing. And then finally, again, we get that DocFlow that we spoke about. So we can then go in and complete the additional stuff in the ABN TFN form. And after successful submission and we get the ABN, again, we've got that final process of submitting that as well. So let's go and take a look at the platform here to help you understand this a little bit further. So those of you that might not have seen the platform before, this is our main documents order page that you can see here. One of the things you'll notice on here is we have some subscription detail. If we have a document subscription, therefore you will see how many you have within your counter that you have access to. Now, I spoke about the workflows before. So within the My Account area, for those that we see as the primary subscription holder or subscription holders, so the partner, the managers and so forth, there is what we call our user reporting in here. And this is giving the firm that has the subscription the ability to add the multiple users that will actually have access to ordering documents under the subscription. So there'll be an ability to invite, there'll be an ability, we're still working through this, but at its core, it is working, and we'll get that set up for you in the initial sense. But what you can see here is the ability that where you will have visibility and control over who can be added, who can be removed, what they can do. And then within the order history, the parent, as you can see here, and there can be multiple parents. So if you've got a partner that might be the firm's owner and subscriber, but they want to have a manager and maybe then an admin and an accountant or someone that might be involved in that, me as the parent, I can then see the saved orders of that particular member, but I can also then see the completed orders of who has done what as well. So that's crucial from a workflow point of view, because you might have an admin team member producing an order form up to a certain point in time, but then it needs to be reviewed before it gets generated by the relevant manager. So that manager, on the basis that they've got that primary access, they can then go in, obviously look at all the information within here, work their way through it, and then obviously submit that. And equally on the completed orders, they could then come in, have access to that order, and then download it themselves. And there are various combinations to that we've seen with clients in recent times where someone's been away, I don't know where this document is. We can simply go in here and find it under David or Tim or Joanne or whoever that was. Okay, so this is crucial. And as we go along, you'll start to see the fact that when we build out DocFlows and there is a workflow, anyone that is within this subscription, the idea is that we would be able to assign that to different parties as a result of the subscription that is in play. So I'm going to go back to our company here, and what our new documents, I should say. And you can see here we have our companies, of which we have both special purpose and standard companies. So I'm not going to worry about, we do have an integrations area to be able to connect to your different softwares. But naturally, at this point in time, we're looking at ordering the funds first and the companies first. So what I wanted to share with you in the company forms are really just a few different things, because many of you who might be online today would be acutely aware of how to order companies. So I'm not going to spend much time on that. But the one thing or a couple of things that I did want to highlight here is the first thing that we want to do, and you can see here, we've already got the little note that advises of the changes from 1 July 2023, so you can jump in and look at that, is that we will do the name check. Okay, so if we type here June SMSF, Proprietary Limited, we can then look at and see the validation. So here we have an accessible company under that name that would then let us start that particular company. And you can see it will just put that detail down there. If we tried to do something that we weren't allowed to, so if we called it June Trust Proprietary Limited, and again, you can do the different settings there, you can see it would be rejected because of the word trust. So there are a range of things in here that limit our ability to get that wrong in the first instance. And that's about helping you. It's also about helping us in terms of those order forms then being rejected. The other thing that I did want to note is you can see in here we have a range of tool tips. So I was talking about this earlier on. So where you want to try and understand some of the information in respect to what the question is asking, you can go through and do that. So we have a range of things in here. If we look at the office holders, we are starting, is that coming up? There you go. Office holders, we now have put in things like the director ID, which is an optional thing at this point in time. There's no mandatory requirement about having to include that in here, but we just note, and we've got the obligations around the current situation with director IDs and some reference points there as well. So you can see these different tool tips that we have to help you understand some of the relevant information in respect to that process. So I'm not really going to spend much more time than that in that process there for you, other than to say that once you go through that process, you will then be able to review that document like you can with any other document, and then submit that to be prepared, of which the API will send off to ASIC, and then it may take up to 20 minutes, but in essence, we'll get that confirmation. And once the ASIC certificate has been issued, we will then generate the rest of the documents for you, and then you'll be able to download those. So I'm going to go to the completed orders page here and just show you, in essence, what the outcome is. I should note our integration here is with listed company InfoTrack. So we're sending, in essence, via the API through to them. And what we then do is we get those response messages back to say that that company has actually been successfully incorporated, or whether there's an issue. And if there is an issue, we'll come back to you with that issue. And in many instances, we can potentially fix that ourselves. It might be that, you know, the address isn't properly recognized, or the date of birth, or whatever it may be. Okay, so you can see here, here's a couple of companies that have been ordered. So once that has been done, you'll then be able to download the documents. You'll be able to get your certificate. You'll also be able to push that to CAS 360, and you'll get the confirmation to do so. And as I said before, as long as you got your connection on, most importantly, that data will then push across. So in that instance, before we did that, we would want to make sure that we go in. I might just open this in a new tab. We want to make sure that we've got our connection into CAS 360. And then let me check what I've done there. Maybe I've got it open in here because it is the one. Let me disconnect that. I'm hoping that's all it was. No. The beauty of live demonstrations. I will check that, but the idea is exactly the same as it is with Simple Fund 360, where in essence, you just need to get that connection completed that you can see there. You'll choose the sign-in process. So this should work for either anyway. We need to do our multi-factor authentication, as is the case with just about everything these days because of the digital services provider framework. And then once that has been done, we should be able to then go back and complete that process. Okay, so that is in essence the integrations process. It applies equally with Simple Fund, with SuperMate, with Class. They're all the same in that regard. So I'm going to go back to our completed orders now, and then we'll go and dig up our company again, because the next thing that I did want to show you is the step that we take next. And you'll see, as we were discussing before, and as I showed you from that completed orders page, so if I just look up the company again, you will see quite clearly we had in the drop menu, we had a data or docket flow that in essence said, we are now going to look at creating our new self-managed super fund. So I'm just going to move across to a different company here. And what this will allow you to do, obviously, in the completed orders area, is you can search over the companies, you can search over different fund documents, you can display more. If something is being processed, you can refresh those as well. So we can see here, we've got this Nike Co. company and corporation, and we've got the ability in here to download the documents, download the certificate, as we said before, push to CAS, and we now have this create new self-managed super fund. So what this is now doing is going, give me all the data in that original form and map it to the new SMSF form so that I don't need to recomplete a range of information that is within this form. Now, quite clearly, you can see here, we have things like a fund name that we don't know what that is yet because that was not relevant to the company incorporation. Neither was the establishment date. So therefore, if we just stick in the Nike realm, so Nike SMSF, we put in our particular date, we have then again, similar things. So we have a 60-day time frame in which to register the SMSF. So, but if you don't want to include a date, you don't have to. But you do, if you do include a date, well, then the clock is ticking. We have things like QROPs. I know many of you deal with QROPs, so UK pension transfers. We have a deed specifically drafted that deals with it. So you're not needing to go off and get any extra work done and pay any extra fees in respect to a QROPs deed being prepared. So there are a range of documents that happen as part of the process so that you don't need to go through a different and manual step compared to what you would do ordinarily just because it is a QROPs arrangement. So in here, I'm just going to click no. But what you can see down here is we now have things like, and I might just put in our address first. So, so the other thing you'll notice as I'm typing here, we can start to see things pre-filtering. So if I just type in a unit number, a level, street address, all these things will be readily available. So we are in Suite 4, Level 7, 350 Collins Street, and you can see all that level of detail is included in here. So if for some reason it doesn't appear, you can also click a manual address and you can override and put that detail in there. The advantage, however, of having a predefined address here is that it can then be used in a drop menu down at a later point in time. Okay, so again, I won't spend too much time on that particular topic there, but we now have then in the trustee meeting address a range of these available based upon the data that is imported and anything that we have started to add into the fund address in here. So even the one I had before, the current one, the one that we've actually got from within the company order that we've done, we can choose any one of those. But you can see in here, we now have a range of information that has come through from this test company. It's a bit of a dummy company, so therefore some of this doesn't quite look right. But in essence, this information is populating through. Also the name of the individuals, whether because we've only got one member sole director, here we're asking the question whether there is another party involved in this or not. So we'd select no in that instance. We've got dates of birth, we've got given names, family names. We would need to put in the TFN of the individual. But in essence, we now have that form completed to be able to then generate the self-managed super fund deed. So it's a huge time saver because we're not having to rekey a lot of that company detail that we saw before that we would have had to have done in the past. Now, every form, as I said, has its own review and submit function in here. So every order, you can go in and check the information prior to submission. If you order on a pay-as-you-go basis, then credit card details will apply at the bottom of the page. As a member, so I spoke about on the start of the documents page where I have a subscription and you could see the counter before. Here, I bypass the payment gateway for this document. With a company, you're still going to have the payment gateway, but it's going to be a member rate as opposed to a PAYG rate because you do pay the ASIC fee and a small admin fee that we actually get charged ourselves with InfoTrack. But all we then do is we would place that order and then the order will look to generate. And that may take 2 to 3 minutes. And obviously I've prepared one earlier here. So I want to show you the emails that come through. So you can see here, the messages have already started to hit there, but you're getting, and they're still coming, but you'll get your order confirmation. So just to say it has been submitted, it's on its way. You will also get a detail of your submission. So what was ordered, you'll get confirmation of that. So you can go back and check it if something doesn't look right. With a new SMSF, what we also say to you is, well, you've got here the opportunity to apply for the ABN TFN, and there's a help guide. Go and have a look at that. And then, of course, once the documents have been generated, you will get an email which you can simply click on that link, but you also access it at any point in time within your completed orders screen. So this is one, like I said before, that we've prepared. We have our deed, obviously. You've got all the documents sitting inside that one PDF file. And we've got blanks where we know if some people print them out. If you're printing them double-sided, then obviously that would be there for that very reason. Now, let's go back to the complete orders page. And you can see here that Nike SMSF that we just did has actually been, or is in the process of being generated. And we've got those different order information there. And you'll see shortly just how quickly that then comes through. So if it doesn't come through quickly, then the next question is, well, what do I do? What do I do next? So we do have support then available. And there are a number of ways that you can access support. Okay, so support isn't, let's email Aaron and get him to fix it. Support is, we have a ticketing system that sits within here to help you. In the first instance, you might be able to find something. My document didn't generate correctly. So you can go in and find out what you should be doing. For example, email us at support@smartersmsf.com, which will log a ticket and we can come back to you. You can also do it via Ask. And via asking here, you can put in your inquiry, fill out the detail, and it's going to land in exactly the same spot as if you had have emailed us at support@smartersmsf.com. And similarly, we have support tickets over here, so you can lodge it through the support tickets area, and which will allow you to track all of your support tickets as well if you have multiples that need to be followed up. So you have this area here that you can actually go through and have a look at what is going on and any of those previous ones there as well. So we now have our document ready that you can see here. So that's only taken 3 minutes. So from 12:35 to 12:38 that you can see on the screen. But what we're now going to do is our next step. So we've completed our company and we've completed our self-managed super fund. And this is now the opportunity for us to go and do our next action. And you can see a range of these on here. We can get our documents, we can send it to SuperMate, we can send it to class, we can send it to Simple Fund 360, we can send the docs to Simple Fund 360, we can send it back to saved if we want to, but we can now apply for our ABN and TFN. So what this is now doing is grabbing the data from our new SMSF form, remembering that our new SMSF form grabbed data from our company form to enable us to complete our ABN TFN. So now what we've done in here is we've answered. So we have every question on the ABN form within here, but we're not showing you all of them because we know some of the default answers that are going to be. We know this is a self-managed super fund. So the initial questions about whether it is applicable as a self-managed super fund, we're not going to get you to complete because we know what the answers are that should be answered. So they're hidden behind here to streamline and make this process as quick as possible. Okay, so we've got our reference, we've got it's a self-managed fund, we've got the name, we've got the accumulation date, we've got the establishment date, we've got the address. Okay, so then what we need to do is start filling out what we don't know. So is it the same as the postal address? What is the email address that we need to do? Mail at, smartersmsf.com or whatever it may be. If there's a work phone number, then we'd have that number in there. The ESA, so again, you've got the opportunity to choose whatever that ESA is. If you're a BGL user, you can actually complete this form from within BGL, our document platform in there, and it will default naturally to that BGL one that is available. So I might just go data flow there for the class users. So this information is automatically going through. All the BSB and account details have been removed. So that was removed earlier this year. So you do need to add bank details separately in the ABN process. Now, the other thing that's worth noting is for the very first time that you are doing an ABN TFN, you will need to complete the authorized contact details that you can see on here. But once you complete an order, then what you're going to be able to do is we're going to store that information for a future point in time. So now what you can see in here is I'm not having to rekey this information each and every time. So I've got Aaron detail, the position that I hold. So you can put tax agent, whatever that relevant thing is that you can see there, okay? We've got business name, the mandatory ones have the red asterisks. We can put in a tax agent number there, which is obviously limited to the relevant characters. And then the huge advantage in here is around our associated contacts. Okay, so from this point of view, what we're now doing is we're creating 3 because we have our company and we have our 2 directors, members inside this fund. So what we now have is there's no sort of legal representative or something here, but we've got our company as our associate 1, which is always the default position. Click confirm that it's a trustee. We've got all the addresses. We've got Jack in this instance, who's the director and the member. We've got their tax file number. All that sort of stuff is done. We've got Jill, female, director and member. And we've got, again, tax file number. So that's done. So if you think about the time that takes on the ABR, it's a huge amount of time just to work through that particular process. And once you've done your own details for the first time, again, there's a huge time saving in that as well. What am I missing? Oh, the establishment date of the company that was incorporated, because we don't have that once the documents had been generated for the new SMSF. So I've missed that one there. We will look to, I reckon we can probably pull that down somehow off the API that comes through. So I might actually look at doing that with the team. We have our disclosure requirements here. So does the fund intend on being a self-made super fund for that long? Obviously, the disclosure requirements in here would need to be manually completed. Next. And then we have, as a final question, just the disclosure information in respect to the lodgement of and preparation of the ABN TFN in its own right. So that last one here that you can see is the declaration. Again, I can choose me, which will then put in that information that you can see on the bottom of the screen as well. So if I'm making that as an intermediary, you can actually put the intermediary ABN in there as well if you want to. Doesn't need it for the purposes of being validating. We have our declaration date here, and then I'm not going to hit submit for obvious reasons. So you've got the differences there, as I said before. I might need to just put something there just in case. Just so we've got something. Whoops. And again, what I should say, and you did see I nearly pressed save rather than save and next, is that at any point in time, you can save this order and go back to it. Okay, so you might not want to lodge it yet, but you might want to prepare it for the client. But it allows you to go back. And again, you can look at a staff member doing it, but the manager potentially reviewing it. So naturally, this is live. So I'm not going to go and complete it, but all of the info is in here and the outcome is exactly the same as any other document order. Okay, so The one thing that is worth noting, so for members, there is a fee attached to this because we do have an API fee that we have ourselves. So for members, this is $33. For PAYG is $55. But the saving that you get is significant. I hope I've been able to demonstrate that as part of the process. We would simply place the order and then it's going to send that message into the Australian Business Register to get that prepared and hopefully validated with the confirmation. So I'm going to go back to a completed order here and show you a couple of different things, because we will get a response message as a result of the submission of that order. And the response message may be positive and it may be negative. So if we have a failed response message, you can see here, you will get noted with what that failed response message is, and then it will allow you to go and rectify. So you'll see here, there's a document that'll get generated and it will tell you what the problem is. And you can see here, in this instance, this is one we tested, but was unable to connect to the API. And then we tell you what the thing is next. Okay. The other thing you can see in there is then you can go back and hit amend. That will take it back into your saved orders, and then you literally rinse and repeat and go through that actual process. Where it is having been completed successfully, then what happens is this, and I'm going to go back to our slides now to help explain this further, because a successful submission will change to a finished response, okay? And we will generate the document that you can see on your right-hand side here, what we're calling our ABN integration response. So it's going to give you the ABN. It's going to obviously include the name of the fund. It's going to give you the status. It's going to give you the registration date, the type of fund, the code, and we're giving you a document number. Now, that document number becomes important because if you ever need to go and speak to the ATO in respect to this document, even if it is generated but subject to manual review, the document number is the reference point for you to access. Okay, and once you've got that number, you can jump straight online and go to Superfund Lookup, put that number in, and you will find the fund listed on the ABR. Okay, so there is a process that we will go through, like I said, for successful submission. If it's unsuccessful, as I showed you on the platform, the error message can be downloaded. You can check what the issue is. You may need to contact us to have a look. We had an example the other day. We got a very weird message. We went back, we identified that it was an ATO or ABR issue. But if we actually went online to this Superfund Lookup, we could see that the actual ABN had been issued for that client, and therefore the client was pretty much up and underway. So if the ABN is lodged but withheld subject to further ATO investigation, again, that document number there is the reference point that you can then go and follow that up. And you can see here, in standard ATO practice, you're still going to get your SMSF notice about being a regulated fund as the evidential document. You'll get your TFN issued and your ABN advice letter. All those things stay the same, and also around the 14-day time frame in terms of when those sorts of things will be issued as well. And again, once those have actually been issued, you are going to then have that ability to then push that number back into your SMSF software. So here you can see just an example in BGL. You can download the document, which is that ABN confirmation. And once you got that ABN, we can push that back up into your software. This applies again across all the different softwares. You'll get the validation, or if there's some error, you'll get the error. And you can see down there, the ABN has been added into the system there. So that is our end-to-end process around our fund establishment process. And I hope that has given you some really good insight into the significant improvements that we've made in the area, but the opportunities that this will actually present as well. So a couple of things just to remind you. Some of you may not understand how to navigate the platform. Some of you may have accessed already. but you can simply sign up pay as you go, get your login details, connect your software if you need to, if you're ordering a range of other documents, and then simply work your way through the ordering process, as I've really demonstrated to you today. When you sign up, you will get a registration confirmation. You can see the email that comes out with your login details. The only comment I make is we do have a double opt-in process. So it is important that you do complete that double opt-in, because it will ensure delivery of things like your tax invoices and other things that might be relevant to you. And as I said before, if you have any other questions, you can get in contact with us by phone or the ticketed support. And we'll make sure every time that new members come on and sign-ups, you'll get a phone call just to make sure everyone is up, set up, understanding really what you need and how can we be of assistance and help to you. So the other thing that I should have mentioned, which I didn't before, and I'm just going to quickly jump back into the site, is a lot of this then, as I said before, sits inside our knowledge base. So you can then search in here around the ABN, as we said before, and you can see here we've built comprehensive guides that step you through each of the steps that we've really gone through today. Okay, so there's these across a range of things, whether it's the TFN, whether it's things like our foundations courses. We build out these to help you understand, most importantly, the steps. You can see here some of the error messages that we get, how you then can push this stuff back into your SMSF software as well, and choosing where they go to and the like. So if you want more detail, you can jump in and have a look at this to better understand it. And equally, you can come in and have a look at any number of the sample documents that we have across our website, including things like our deeds, pension documents, and so on and so forth. So again, you can download those or access those at any point in time, I should say. So let's go back and sort of wrap up today. Trying to find where I need to be. So a bit about why us. I guess, again, people choose us because of our award-winning technical expertise and the ability to transpose that really into the documents as well. And many of you will know that not only do we have myself as an SMSF specialist, we now also have the addition of Tim Miller, who's come in as our head of SMSF Technical and Education Manager. And he's already adding great value into not only our course content and stuff, but more generally with technical support and ideas around documents and the like as well. We are agnostic to software. We know we have a range of clients that have, that I guess, provide services across BGLs and classes and SuperMates and stuff. So there's no bias in the way in which we do this. We offer it broadly across all the software providers, allowing you, in essence, to focus on what you do best. We have a broad range of clients too. So we have what we call the general practitioners, and not a large number of funds, but enough maybe to have a subscription, or they might just sort of pay as they go. But it's that trust. We know that Smarter SMSF knows what they're doing. So therefore, there's a level of trust that if I use these documents, then I'm mitigating my own risk around making sure that they would comply with the law. Pension documents, changes of trustees, whatever the case may be. But on the flip side, we also deal with a lot of larger firms, so that have specialist divisions, and even administrators that have hundreds and even thousands of funds. And the conversations there are very different. This is all about, we know what we're doing, and we need to make sure that the providers that we use are industry best practice. And once we're satisfied around that level of due diligence, then we need highly efficient and consistent experiences. We need to be able to produce pension documents in the many hundreds each and every year, but it needs to be connect to my class data, BGL data, populate all the information, next, maybe answer a few things along the way, submit and get my document generated. Because I have clients that have hard deadlines and I need to be able to support those as we go along. And I know that applies not only with compliance-based documents, but I know at the very front around fund establishment, that is relevant too. So we get it. We have our both our telephone and our ticketed support to really make sure that we can hone in and support you as and when you need to as well. And when I spoke at the very beginning about our expertise and we know what we're good at, this is part of the reason why, okay? Because when we look at some of the competitors in the marketplace, they might talk about having breadth of documents. We do all this stuff. We've got a lot of stuff. But the reality is we know what we're good at, and we will go deeper into topics that may be relevant to you. Well, what happens if a member dies? What happens if they lose capacity? How do we deal with this certain situation? And these are the things that we see and experience every day, talking to hundreds of members about potential issues, and why we go down to what we call level 4 extended thinking, because we're not only understanding the law, we then look at, well, what impact does that have on existing things? And then can we potentially create an opportunity or ring fence something as a result of that change? And again, our deed change, we're making some changes at 1 July, not only off the hill and Zuda around BDBNs, but more recently off some cases that we've seen in the Queensland Supreme Court as well. And that then has a flow-on effect to our binding death benefit nominations, looking at things like electronic execution with the modernising of business communications program that the government's doing. These things are all part and parcel of having the specialist knowledge and getting access to these things, obviously with our standing in the industry as well. So what's ahead? For us, as I think I've demonstrated to you today, DocFlows is going to play a huge role, not only in our fund establishment, which we've demonstrated today, but also across a broad range of documents. If you think about a company to do your LRBA, a change of trustee with your deed upgrade, potentially also incorporating a company in there, pensions that allow you to commute and then repurchase, adding a new member and a deed upgrade. Like I said, the ideas are endless. So rather than us having to create combination documents, because if you say, this would be a really good idea, Aaron, and then it would take us a huge amount of time to actually have to build those, this workflow or DocFlows is really going to set us apart, in our view, around the opportunities that are available within your SMSF client base. We are also going through a journey at the moment to migrate to a new Docs 2.0 platform that will be moved into beta in this back half of the year. Our enhanced subscription admin functionality, as we showed you before, in terms of that primary and secondary users with the team being able to access the subscription and its functionality. Our deed manager, so our deed service allowing you to manage your deeds and constitutions and other documents online, and then potentially automatically updating those as part of a deed service, is moving to beta, and we're sort of adding some clients into that at the moment. And we've got a number of other things, including our unlicensed accountant templates and sort of bundling those into our existing subscriptions as well. So we've got a heap of work to keep us busy for a very long time. That is all about sort of sharing with you what is on our plate, what most importantly we've been working on as well, and we're really excited by getting that bit going. We've had a lot of requests for it over some period of time. So our team has done a great amount of work, and a big thanks to all of them for their contribution to actually help be better with what we can offer you as well. So if you do have any questions about anything that we've covered today, please feel free to get in contact with us. Our details are on the screen. We've got one last event before we wrap up this financial year, which is more about our CPD-based solutions on the 27th of June. But other than that, if there's no other questions, a very big thank you for joining me today and at any time during our SMSFs Integrations Week. I hope you have a great rest of this financial year and look forward to seeing you at an event in the near future. Take care and bye for now.